Namaskar, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi in Bangladesh. There's a lot that needs to be spoken about. Where did it come from? How did it happen? And why is there a mindset called Bangladesh? We spoke about the mindset of Pakistan. Ye kya hai? What is this new sort of a behavior? I have with me Mr. Shiv Kunal Verma, who is a renowned author, commentator, a military historian, and someone who can actually shed a certain amount of light as to why the Bangladeshis are behaving the way they are behaving. Thank you so much, sir. Welcome to the show, and I'm looking forward to hearing a historical aspect as to what in the world is wrong with these guys.
Namaskar, Radi. You're being very kind in saying that I can shed light on Bangladeshi behavior because, frankly, I think they themselves can't understand what the hell are they doing. Uh, so, yeah, there's a lot that needs to be looked at. And especially, I think, in the case of Bangladesh, they really are a classic case where they really need to learn from history. That
Hmm.
thing that history, there's also another saying in history that we also learn from history that you never learn from history, which is which is a another angle to the whole thing. But the situation over there is something which it is bewildering, to put it mildly.
Hmm. So this is a country that has, or let me just rephrase that. This is a region, the Bengal region itself. ये लड़ते झगड़ते रहते हैं. They have been mired with political violence. और ये अभी का नहीं है. This has been there for a while. They keep doing this, and there is a tendency of political violence in this region, which we see today also. In West Bengal, we see it. We see it in Bangladesh. Why is it? I mean, do you have any idea what is it in the culture that there is so much of violence in itself? Otherwise, it's a very, बड़ा अच्छे लोग हैं, बड़े पढ़े लिखे लोग हैं, काफी काम धंधा करते हैं. They write poetry, they write this thing, they write books, intellectually very sound people and this and that. Why? क्यों है इतना violence क्यों है सर इनके अंदर? Why do they fight so much?
I think, to put it very simply, there is a big difference between the haves and the have-nots in Bengal. That is something that has always traditionally been a very major issue. If you go into the 24 Paraganas, you go into these other areas away from into the rural part of West Bengal, you realize how dire things are or were. I haven't been there for a while, but I did shoot a film in Sundarbans and all that in the 80s. It was a shocking revelation because there was Calcutta with its nightlife, clubs, and the middle class being what it is. Then you enter this, you catch a train from there. It's a 1 hour run from Calcutta to Sialda, and then you enter Port Canning, and you from Sialda to Port Canning, and you it's like stepping into something from the prehistoric times. I mean, they just women don't have cloth to cover their breasts. I mean, it's that, and children with swollen bellies. The situation is very bad, and I hope it's better now. I haven't been there, and that difference between the haves and the have-nots in Bengal has always been a kind of an undercurrent. It's also very important to understand that Bengal has traditionally been an extremely, extremely rich area. Whoever controlled Bengal actually controlled India. Even the Mughals, the two sultanates which mattered the most to the Bengal Sultanate and the Gujarat Sultanate. I mean, right down from Akbar's time, they had to get, immediately take control of Bengal. Bengal was where the revenue was, and everybody exploited the area as much as they could. And even in colonial times, when the British they finally made inroads over there in the Battle of Plassey and stuff like that. But Bengal, being such a fractional, I mean, so badly riddled with contradictions, it's always been easy for an outsider to exploit that. I mean, Plassey was what? It was a classic case of the gates being opened from within, right?
Then,
And
yes, sir.
because ये यहाँ का you will always have this where you have such a diverse difference between the people who are controlling things and those who are actually struggling for survival. It's been a and Bengal's history has been very, very weird. Apart from the fact that the way the British also treated it. I mean, we in North India had one partition, yeah, in 1947 in Punjab, and we haven't got over it. I mean, generations of it still talk about it. They're still hit by it. At least my up till my generation, everybody is very
And
impacted by it.
even now, sir.
In the case of Bengal, there have been multiple partitions. Yeah, starting with Curzon's initial partitioning of Bengal, then taking it back, then again what happened in 1947, then again what happened in 1971, and it's never really ended. I mean, it just continued on and on and on and on. So there's a lot of violence. There's a lot of this thing. Then add to this, you have the Bengali Muslims. You also have the Bihari Muslims who are there, and they were. Let's not forget that in 1971, when all the killings and everything have happened, the figure of 3 million dead was put forth by Sheikh Mujibur Rahman himself, um, and it's estimated that the Pakistani army itself did not kill more than 100,000 out of that 3 million. But 29 lakh people were killed by the Razakars. And who the hell were the Razakars? Again, Sheikh Hasina tried to, even now, when she brought all these war crimes, all this kind of stuff in the late 2017, 18, 19, they even got hold of 80, 90-year-old guys who had been living it up and you send them to the gallows. Uh, it's a very, very sad scenario because that's sad because it's such a the people inherently are very nice, as you said. They're wonderful people. I mean, Bengali culture, Bengali the intellectual level, everything is fantastic. And क्या बोले यार एक तो they also had this whole business of under the whole communist regime for a very long time. Bengal got pulled into the literally into the morass, and the division of Bengal, East Bengal, West Bengal. We I don't think the focus has been so much on Pakistan. We've not really thought about what actually has impacted the situation
Yeah.
in Bangladesh.
Mm, mm. So the idea of Pakistan came out of Bangladesh, and the by what you described, there is a sense of a feudal mindset, right? कि जो rulers हैं वो rulers हैं, जो workers हैं वो workers हैं. Do you think that whole idea of Pakistan and the feudal mindset got transposed into that idea of Pakistan? Because we see that in Pakistan, we see that in Bangladesh as well. There is a certain amount of a feudal mindset which is still kind of very prevalent.
That is the irony of the whole thing, because you see, let's look at the INA trials which took place in Delhi. At that time in Calcutta, the Muslim League and the Congress flags were put on the same danda, and they were like, brotherhood couldn't have been stronger. They
Hmm.
went running through the streets in support of the INA and all that kind of stuff. INA, of course, had a double emotional appeal in Bengal because of Subhash Chandra Bose. Netaji was, and is very rightly so, a very revered figure there. So the
Hmm.
whole trials had a very different kind of an impact. But then let's look at what happened immediately after that, months after that. You have Jinnah's direct action call, and this is the time when all the provisional states they voted. And apart from Punjab and Sindh, the everybody rejected the concept of a separate state. Whether it was Tamil Nadu, whether it was Bihar, whether it was जो भी था, सबने मना कर दिया. लेकिन बंगाल में क्या हुआ? ये डायरेक्ट एक्शन में few, I mean, in fact, it's fairly well documented what happened. These guys, they crossed the Hooghly. There was a whole bunch of guys in the Muslim League who came, and they went on this very coordinated massacre through Calcutta, which completely swung everything to the other extent. And that they were supported by the British is a very well known fact, because even in the provisional elections, eventually you'll find that the Anglo-Indian community, which reflected the British thinking at that time, has actually at that time they were the only other people who voted for Pakistan in that indirect sense. Now here's the irony of the whole situation, Adi. If these are the guys who have actually created Pakistan, if they hadn't voted this way, there was no way it's going to happen. And then, despite the fact that some of the, between 1958 and 47, they had 10 or so governments in Pakistan, out of which three, four prime ministers were from East Pakistan. But they literally allowed themselves, and it's again that have not Salah and haves.
Hmm.
They just went into this. They went into this kind of a relationship with West Pakistan, which is ridiculous. कि आप साहब हो हम गुलाम हैं. And the on the other side, on the other side, there was a saying. In fact, General Setna used to be the BGS during the 71 war in Eastern Command, and he used to say, he said the mindset of the Pakistanis is Sadda Punjabi, Sala Bengali.
भूखे
They
बंगाली
killed
भी होंगे.
They killed without any remarks. I mean, they didn't even, they even, they looked at them like animals.
Hmm.
They didn't even see them as human beings. And the worst part is the Bengalis actually allowed it to happen,
Happen.
you know. And they got into this relationship, which was a negative relationship, and that is continuing even today. Look at what they're doing now. They're sucking up to a country which has actually let loose apps. Now, again, their history has been completely wiped out. After Sheikh Hasina came to India in 2017, Lieutenant General Lumba, who was a former DGMI, and we were asked to go to Bangladesh. And we went, and we went on 3 trips. We had a meeting with the foreign minister on the first trip, the finance minister on the second trip, and the Mukti Jodha minister on the third trip. We were supposed to help them. They took us to the museum. They wanted to they wanted to put a right kind of a perspective, not right or wrong. It is the perspective of what happened. Because when we visited the National War Museum, for example, 71 war, there were only 3 photographs of the Indian Army. It just didn't make sense. And nondescript ones. There is one of 3 dogra on a railway line pushing that, जो ट्रॉली के टाइप होता था ना ट्रेन का,
Hmm.
उसमें जा रहे हैं. एक सरेंडर का कुछ था और 3 भी नहीं थी यार, 2 थी. And interestingly, when I went there, the director of the museum, he dug out a remark. My father had visited earlier. He had commanded 18 Rajput at the Battle of Ashuganj was fought by. My dad's remarks they showed me after I had written mine, and actually it was very funny because what I had written was exactly what my dad had said. About 5 6 years before that, it was almost verbatim. And the what happened in Bangladesh, what happened in the war, got completely screwed up in their head. Now, the I remember the foreign minister when we met him. He gave General Setnan. He was quite incredulous. He had a fat book in his hand. He said, "See, the ISI has printed this, and look at this. The covering letter. They have said ki, and they have that photograph of those guys who'd been shot and were lying on a rickshaw. Very famous, iconic photograph of Associated Press. उसको cover पे डाला हुआ है. The bloody swines had done it to themselves, and they're saying Indian Army has killed these chaps and all that. And this was the narrative they were propagating. And the best part was the covering note, which was sent by, guess who sent it? The director of ISI. It's gone to all countries. That, we want to give you a right perspective for what happened in the Indian Army and the Bengalis did this, blah, 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 blah. And in that note, somewhere it was also said 1 million copies have been printed. So, that is the kind of investment Pakistan was putting into this entire thing. And what were we doing as far as the narrative was concerned? We've always
Nothing.
had a kind of, think, Bangladesh is there. We've always, I don't think we've given it enough thought. And it is something which is a big problem. Some of the things which happened in 71 are so damn shocking that even talking about it makes you cringe. Yeah. I've, as you know, apart from everything else, I've also co-authored General V.K. Singh's
Hmm.
autobiography. Now, he was the intelligence officer in to Rajput, which was in Bologna, 1.5 hours drive from Agartala, where 18 Rajput was. Now, I'll quote 3 incidents which are of interest. He was a young second lieutenant and just been commissioned, etc. And they, at some point near Comilla or somewhere, they captured about a few Pakistani officers. Now, these guys were least repentant about what the hell had happened. In fact, they were bragging. And one of them tells VK, he says, come here, let me tell you, how many Bengalis do you think you can kill with 1 bullet?
But yeah, I've heard this story. Bloody hell.
And he says, so VK looked at him and absolute, the jaw hanging down, and he says, 12. He says, you have to make sure they're all the same height. Put them, line them up, absolutely straight, shoot them through the bloody temple, the bullet will go right through. By the time the round is spent itself, 12 mar gaye. He's bragging about it. He's bragging about it. Later, When they land up in Chittagong, what happens? They go to the CEO of Two Rajput was Devdutt, Colonel Devdutt. He calls VK. He says, "Go and have a look. There is some reports of a race improvement camp in some university nearby." So they went. They didn't know what the hell was coming. He had his pistol in his holster. He had two guys for protection, one driver. Four or five of them went in a jonga, and they come to this place and they can't believe what the hell they see. There are 400 stark naked women in all advanced stages of pregnancy, each one of them. And they were Pakistani captors who were waiting for the Indian army to surrender. Associated Press has got footage of this. If you dig it out, if you search for it, you might even find it. On the walls, they have drawn graffiti of, raping women and doing this and doing that. Sada Punjabi, Sala Bengali. I mean, they were there to plant the seed in these women. A lot of these kids were born after the war. There's a name for them in Bengal, in Bangladesh. I've forgotten what it is. The whole thing was so pathetic. It was not funny. Then there was the third incident, which again we've quoted, which we've written about in VK's autobiography, as well as in my own autobiography, Hindustani. When my dad was in Fort Benning in 1969, uh, we followed. We were not supposed to go, and because there's some foreign exchange issues. Indian government being Indian government, my dad was getting $4. The next guy, Pakistani guy, was the second poorest. He was getting 16, and everybody else was North Korea, South Vietnam, this that. Anyway, that's a different part. When we got there, we came a couple of weeks later, and we were given some temporary accommodation. First time in my life we were seeing a laundromat. Yeah, it was a hell of a thing in '69. We guys had no clue about half the things which were happening. Color TV, things, ACs. हमने तो till in India till I was 21 not seen a blooming air conditioner.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we hear in the courtyard somebody whistling. मैं क्या करूँ राम मुझे बुड्ढा मिल गया. अब पूरा bloody journey, and those days flights used to be terrible. Yeah, the flight to the US was Delhi to Tehran, Tehran to Istanbul or Beirut, Istanbul. We had to keep hopping in those Pan Am flights. मरते मरते पहुंचे थे और यहाँ जाके क्या करूँ राम मुझे बुड्ढा मिल गया after 2 weeks of travel or something like that. It was a Pakistani officer, Chakol Sarfraz. He became damn pally. Yeah. Bhabhi ji, mujhe aloo ke parathe types. He would be in a house all the time. My dad used to find him damn irritating. But what could he do? And after a while, this whole thing would be, war is inevitable between India and Pakistan. And Sarfraz would tell my dad, Ashok, when you get captured, take my name. They won't shoot you or they'll cut you up. So my dad, slightly more reticent, he wouldn't say anything. And irony of ironies, he gets captured by two Rajput in Chittagong. And वहाँ जाके he starts
Taking your
checking
dad's
the
name.
Colonel Verma, because dad was commanding 18 Rajput. They were quite right. Yeah, I'm his pal and all that. So General VK was telling me, "Jo, we rang up your father." And we asked him, "Sir, we've got this guy. What do we do with him?" My dad said, "Tell the son of a bitch, we'll hand him over to the Mukti Bahini." I mean, if you're giving him water, don't give him that also. Make his life as miserable as possible. But you see, why I'm telling you all this is that they actually had no remorse. There was nothing. And in fact, this is one area where I think General Manekshaw was too much of a gentleman. He just
Yeah.
decided that will be, the Bangladeshis haven't got over the fact that we did not allow them to try anybody for war crimes. And I think
Yeah.
that was a huge mistake. Because I remember 18 Rajput was in Agartala, right? It was 311 Brigade. When they went in, every village pond was full of bodies. Like, like they मेंढक नहीं मरे होते ऐसे हाथ ऐसे या तो they flip over on their back, but 90% of them are head in. All women had their breasts cut, their toes chopped off, their fingers cut to get those gold. No matter how poor they are, वो toe में एक gold ring बनाते हैं. They had made gold ingots out of that. So they had done, first they raped them, then they killed them, then they cut off their breasts, they did this. All guys, without exception, had their penises cut and shoved in their mouth. And when General Lumba and I were in Dhaka, we met a lot of people who used to come and meet us because of this whole thing that we were talking about. And they couldn't talk without. I mean, how many years had passed? Yeah, 71 to 2018 की बात कर रहा हूँ मैं. 29 plus 18, 37, 47 years. And they couldn't talk without, just as it is, Bengalis are emotional. But this was, I mean, they couldn't speak two sentences without weeping like babies. And yet, collectively, this country today has forgotten that this is what happened to them. And who did it? It was not only Pakistan, but the United States was as bloody culpable. Read the blood telegrams. I mean, it's so clear. And the other guys who held their hand through the whole thing were the Chinese here. And today these guys are flirting with them. I mean, good luck to them. Yeah. There was a guy called very fine Indian Air Force officer who was my coordinating officer during when I made the NDA film, The Standard Bearers. Uh, some of your viewers who are watching this would know about that film, which was made on the NDA. Chaco was a MiG-25 pilot, and in fact, he figured in my earlier film on the Air Force in Bareilly when he was flying MiG-25s. He was quite an exceptional officer, and he had done his staff college in Dhaka. So Chaco lines up in Dhaka, and at the end of a year, it is customary to make your farewell speech. And Johnson Chaco is a very straightforward, down-to-earth guy who will say what he has to say. He'll find a way to say it. So in his speech, he thanked his hosts. He said, "I haven't met more warm people than this," which is true. He wasn't just saying it for the heck of it. He says, "But in my entire 1 year or 9 months or 11 months, whatever the course was," he says, "I have interacted a lot with Bangladesh army officers, left, right, and center, obviously." He says, "I can divide them into two categories. One, pro-China. 50% are pro-China, 50% are pro-Pakistan." He says, "Forget about the fact that I didn't meet anybody who was pro-India." He says, "I didn't meet anybody who was pro-Bangladesh." And this remark of his got him into trouble because the staff college in Bangladesh put a protest note to the External Affairs Ministry that your officer has spoken like this is not corrected, all that. But it's a fact, yeah. They have. See, today they're trying to play the same bloody game which Pakistan played between China and the US and everything, because Pakistan saw themselves as you prostitute yourself to the US, which they did in the 50s and 60s. The Americans get a platform to get into Tibet, which was they saw as the the weak link in the Chinese system. कि यहाँ से जाएंगे. Those things changed after long range missiles and all came into being. But today Bangladesh is trying to play that game. They better have seen for themselves what happened to Sri Lanka, what happened everywhere, by taking this very strange anti-India stand. The kind of remarks made by this Yunus fellow, whatever his name is, are actually shocking, because just what exactly do you think you're playing?
Provocation, sir. Sir, it's also a little to do with about little media and its typical Western liberalist mentality, which is basically do something to just remain in the media all the time, nothing else. He came back empty-handed from China, so make a statement so that nationalism, this that, Yunus is fighting Modi, and that all starts up. He came literally empty-handed from China.
I wouldn't be that simplistic about it.
Yeah, of course, there is a deep
Bangladesh
intent.
general, the army, because we dealt a little bit with them at that time.
Hmm.
They see the Northeast very differently from the way we see it. They actually see it as they see it as a natural extension of what Bangladesh should have been, right? The historical fact is that when Mir Jumla, Aurangzeb tried to go down the Jamuna, which is the Brahmaputra, they initially did. The Mughals they defeated the Ahoms and got to Sivasagar. But then the Awams pushed them back. And at Saraigat, they gave them such a bloody walloping, it was not funny, that not only did they fall back past Shishughat, past back into Bengal, nobody ever dared to go that way, including the British. The British also came into the northeast via Burma because the institutional memory is there ना कि इन्होंने आवाम ने हमको ऐसी ठुकाई की थी. बोर फुकन ने तो इनको ऐसे मारा था कि पूछो मत. At Saraigat, they died horrible death. All these guys, and they ran from there. But they never managed to get back into this particular zone. Bengal has been kind of hemmed in. You've got the
Hemmed in.
Meghalaya
Yeah.
there. You've got the Tripura was a independent state. In fact, Tripura was very different. 1947, it was 90% tribal. It only had about 10% Bengali population. But even now, the Bengali population has now, grown many fold in that area. South Assam, that Karimganj, Silchar area has a very high Muslim population, but Bangladesh could not break that barrier. In fact, the boundaries may have been drawn up, artificially, but the fact is they are along a certain uh,
Ethnic
they,
boundary.
there's a physicality to it which is kind of necessary, which has
Yeah.
tied them up. But in their mind, they feel that उनका बाप का हक है कि साला ये एरिया में हमारे लोग जाके सेटल हो सकते हैं. And you're going to have a very major problem over here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because see, guys like Bittu Sehgal, who's the editor of Sanctuary and a very respected name in conservation. Other day I was talking to him, and one of his pet themes is climate change migration. Now, I'm shooting in the northeast right now. I'm doing 3 books on Arunachal, and in December we crossed the Brahmaputra at Dibrugarh. I got a shock of my life. There was no water in the river. There was one stream left. उसमें भी islands बन रहे थे. अगर यहाँ पे ये हाल है तो नीचे क्या होगा भगवान जाने. और ये हम क्लाइमेट चेंज की बात 10-20 साल की बात नहीं कर रहे हैं. We are talking about the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. Without water flowing into that area, I don't know what's going to happen. There's going to be mass migration where they're going to literally try and break down whatever barriers they can and get into it. So you already have a problem here, which is going to happen whether you like it or not. We have to literally gear up for it and see how to handle it. Um, you've gone mute.
Sorry. Coming back to this Pakistan, this thing, sir. You have the Jamaat, right? And even the so-called students that have kind of protested and all that. And one of their leader is called a guy called Mahfouz Alam. This chap recently said that the Jamaat did war crimes during 71. And this is something I've seen in Bangladeshi politics. कि जब भी किसी को कुछ करना होता है ना उसको 71 से चेप देते हैं और they just ये था वो था and they bloody bring him down. Although a lot of these guys themselves were involved, their families were involved, and some of these students in key family presidents are basically from the same Razakars as you were
A lot of them.
describing. And Colonel Raina spoke about something which is a little icky to talk about, but I think I'm going to bring it up. He said, देखो यार, जो पाकिस्तानी वहां पर छोड़ के गए हैं, that is the seed. So that mentality remains in Bangladesh. That you must understand, DNA does make a difference. So is this so-called closeness because both can't do anything with each other except for terrorism? Beyond that, it's very difficult. Is this whole that leftover seed of Pakistan where the Jamaat was never taken out, even Sheikh Hasina never removed them, knowing full well what they did? Why is it that the parties who wanted to improve Bangladesh, right, and say कि नहीं, we want to kind of make it a normal country after 71, never took action against these Razakars on the street, the Jamaat, so many other people? They were just put into prison and kind of thumbed down. They were
No,
never
that already
banned. They were never kind of
वो बाद में
nothing.
हुआ है यार. Put into prison much later.
Yeah,
Only under Sheikh Hasina Abhi. The
2000s
fact of the matter,
2010 के बाद.
see, actually, the watershed is actually not 1971 as much as 1976, which is
अच्छा,
the assassination of Sheikh Mujib.
मुजीबुर रहमान.
Okay, they went into his house, they machine gunned everybody, they shot everybody. Sheikh Hasina survived because she was in England at that time or something like that. They Jamaat wiped out the history. They wiped it out. Means they took a razor and bड़ी मुंडन कर दिया उसका. Because when we were there, General Lumba and I were talking to a hell of a lot of people, students, yeah, wo, and they were all saying, yes, 71 में कुछ हुआ था. But who they fought? क्या हुआ किसी को नहीं मालूम. And with India on three sides, on your east, west, north, and the Indian Ocean on the other side. I mean, Yunus can claim it's the Bangladesh Ocean, but that's his perception of things. Who is your natural enemy then? Yeah? You're not naming India, but you're implying it is India. Na? We are the guys who fought. यार हमारी पलटने मारी गई, हमारे बच्चे मारे गए, हमारे. Why did we go? We went and we liberated this country. They also fought. And that's another point where I think we've also screwed up a little bit, because in all our writing about 71, etc., we have treated the Mukti Bahini is almost like a also rat. Obviously there couldn't have been any pitched battles. They were not equipped for it. The Pakistan army, even we initially in Dalai and in various other initial, whether Hilli and all that, had those head-on encounters, and the casualties were very heavy. They would have decimated the East Bengal Rifles and the Mukti Jodha and the Mukti Bahini. The Mukti Bahini played a very, very important role in acting as guides, as even some of the hit and run tactics, etc., and creating terror all over the place. But they did not fight any pitch battles. So uske chakkar mein kya hua hai? When our writers are writing about 71, etc., they're focusing on the wars. In that, Bangladesh doesn't figure, because these guys did not fight any major. There's one incident which is quite amusing. Two Rajput, before going to Belonia, was actually in Tura ke paas. And there was a action fought over there where the Mukti Bahini was supposed to launch an assault, and the two Rajput ki company was to support, etc., etc. So as the way things happen, we had pop guns that time, 5.7-inch wali mountain guns. So they opened fire, ta 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 ta. Now the Pakistanis were very well entrenched, because in Bangladesh all the defenses were built around mud encampments, escarpments. So wahan pe, for RT to really have any impact was very little. Now this one company or two companies of Mukti Bahini were supposed to launch the assault, and then two Rajput were supposed to go in and mop up. Artillery fire stopped, and they're waiting for that green signal, that flare to be fired. Okay, we've started, but nothing happened. Yeah, and all that was happening was a lot of shouting and screaming on the Pakistani side. So everybody was very perplexed, and obviously the attack didn't go in from the Rajputs later. Next morning, the Mukti Bahini guys started coming into the camp looking rather shamefaced. So they said, "What happened? You were supposed to launch the bloody attack. Everybody, the RT opened up, the barrage happened, ये happened. हुआ क्या?" कहते इतना गंदा गंदा गाली दे रहा था माँ बहन के बारे में, हमको बड़ा गुस्सा लगा, बुरा लगा, अब घर चला गया. They actually didn't launch the attack because they were emotionally upset by what had happened. I mean, it's a tongue-in-cheek kind of a story. It just gives you an idea. But they were not equipped to fight that war. It had to be fought by the Indian Army. But today, in their narrative, they want to claim that they fought the war. The Indian Army did nothing. I mean, go to the museum. It actually makes you angry here. It makes you bloody angry here, because we've lost people. We've lost people. And what for? हमारी पलटन 18 Rajput का जो memorial है, it's in Agartala even today. Every man contributed money for that. The ashes of the men was put into that marble slab. I mean, these things don't die, They are part of our DNA also. And Bangladesh, somebody needs to get up and tell them the damn truth, yeah. Only their own people can do that, but somebody has to do it.
No, nobody wants to even, sir. I don't see that. I don't see that even yearning. And I've interacted with Bangladeshis. वहाँ पर Hindus and Muslims alike, sir. I started the coverage of this country, and I had a lot of people writing into me, Hindus, Muslims. A lot of the Muslims said कि sir ये क्या हो रहा है हमारे देश के अंदर? What have we done? I had a person who was one of the student protesters in Chittagong. ठीक है sir. And then he came down to Dhaka and he did all sorts of stuff. So initially, he came into my DM. He said, "Oh, we've beaten you, and all that stuff." After about 2-3 weeks, he wrote to me, "Hello, sir, can I talk to you?" मैं इसको क्या हो गया? Tell me. And then he started off saying, sir, what have we done to our country? We made a big mistake. Please help us. Arey bhai, you 3 weeks ago, nahi sir, we made a big mistake. We didn't understand what is happening. How have you changed your opinion in 3 weeks?
Yeah.
But this is what I saw when I was interacting with these people. So they know what is the game, but a vast majority decides to just keep quiet because they know these other guys are already jihadis. They'll cut throats and do all sorts of things. Is
ये
that
वही
what
बंगाल
you?
वही बंगाल का प्रॉब्लम है यार. Very few have not who have the, and the rest of them will. I mean, you see it on the cricket field also. Their whole behavior, their whole demeanor is uncouth. I mean, this is a civilization which is Bengali civilization. I mean, ये तो they should be, aristocratic in the approach to the world. That's what you'd expect
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, yeah.
नवाब
The
ये
literature
people,
and
ये तो वो साइकिल रिक्शा वाले kind of behavior पे आ जाते हैं. I'm nothing against cycle rickshaw walas before
no,
we.
it's just yeah, yeah. So this is what I saw, and I was very shocked. And I had people writing into me saying, "Sir, Hindus to kam ne likha, sir. Muslims wrote a lot." And then they would say that, "Sir, we've made a mistake. How do we get this back?" One time I got a little pissed off at this one guy, and I said, you should get ready for being in an Islamic state because that's what you guys have brought in. ठीक है,
When
तुम लोग
wasn't it?
इतने
When wasn't it an Islamic state? Yeah, except for that
नहीं, but
71.
sir, the women were a bit freer. Even recently, people used to roam around in their trousers and this and that. And this guy is telling me now, okay, sir, they came into my house and told my mother also to wear the hijab inside the house.
So yeah, any moment radicals come into power, that's what happens. By the way, General Ershad had actually done the NDC course in Delhi.
Hmm.
And I was in India today that time in '83. I had just come back from Ladakh. I was in Tiger Top. So a brief period while I was there, before moving on to Associated Press. And we were in Raksha Bhavan. We were in D37 upstairs. Niche was Denzel Keeler, who was, a very famous night fighter pilot. He was. We had very exalted company. I just come back and I just sort of put my bags down when an ambassador pulled up with a couple of escort vehicles. And from ऊपर से देखा कोई गाड़ी आई है. मैं क्या मालूम. So घंटी बजती है and Ershad is standing there and saying कि this used to be my house. I lived here for in this very flat or whatever. So can I come in and have a cup of tea? Luckily, I recognized him and I didn't shoo him off here because he had left all his escorts and everybody down below. So then, of course, my dad wasn't at home, so my mom and we, चाय वाय पिलाई उनको. बड़े पॉलिश थे, बहुत ही तौर तरीके से बात करते हैं. My dad has visited Bangladesh 2-3 times along with General Jacob. They were the honored guests because 18 Rajput's role in Ashuganj is considered to be pivotal in the actual
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
unfolding of events. They, these guys were honored and treated like, very well by these people, and they have very good friends. A lot of them came and met us, General Lumba and I, when we went on those 3 trips. They were a delight to be with, but you can sense it. You step out of we were staying in Hotel Sonar Bangla or something. बाहर निकलो तो you feel that tension. वो बिल्कुल ही थोड़ा anything can happen kind of a feeling. The airport gives you that feeling. It gives you a feeling of, there was a lot of talk around that time that their GDP was doing better than ours and they were better off us on this index, that
Books
index.
of fudge.
But I'm sorry, yeah, there's something very seriously wrong there. You can sense
Books
it.
of
It's
fudge.
like,
They were
uh,
fudging books like nothing on the planet.
whether they're fudging or not is not the issue. Where is India and where is this? Yeah,
Yeah.
even in the worst areas in India where situation is unsteady or whatever, you don't feel that unsafe as you used to. As I felt in Bangladesh, I generally don't feel unsafe in most areas here. But there is this underlying current. They were always a jihadi country. And it's the masses who control it. There's
Hmm.
nothing Sheikh Hasina could do about it, and that's what's eventually bitten her in the butt.
Interesting. So you're saying basically street power is more power than any other power, right? And we
Eventually,
saw that with the army as well. They kind of folded up because of a certain sense of the street power of the junior officers and the NCOs and the soldiers. That one letter that came out that basically folded the army chief.
I know.
You know,
Tell
during
me now.
the
Let me ask you a few questions instead of you asking me a few questions. Now, with the way things are unfolding in Myanmar, and starting from the Kachin Hills right down till the Chin State down below, etc. There are at least 10 different power centers emerging on Burma.
yes,
You've got this Bangladesh on the other side of us, which is has all ISI stronghold. They've been training people. All kinds of nonsense has been going on for a while. Things did simmer down when Sheikh Hasina was there, but even she was not 100% in control as things were. India's own Northeast has been a giant ATM, lot of corruption, lot of issues. But how do you see things planning out? How do you think the Indians are handling the situation, especially in Myanmar and also in Bangladesh?
so for me
Talking
the
to a lot.
solution, yeah, for me the solution of Bangladesh is not in Bangladesh, sir, because I think you've brought it out pretty clearly that the mindset is never going to change. So one is the policy of containment, isolation, and basically a knock on the head every time you kind of move out of the line, which is Pakistan copy paste into the region of Bangladesh. Just like Pakistan, you need Afghanistan to kind of control it. Uh, Here you need the Myanmar regions because that's the place where the weapons are coming from. You know that I'm sure you know the town of Ruili, in the north
Yeah,
where all this nonsense happens. And Paresh Barua had a huge business going around there. His Bangladeshi wife and the Chinese wife were pretty close friends, and they used to do all sorts of nonsense. Today he's sitting in that region only, but poor chap, he's got a lot of health problems and this and that. That's what I've heard. He came into Bangladesh after the coup, by the way. He came for a little bit and went back. He probably saw shit, and he went back. Uh, what I see is that to stop any militarization in Bangladesh, there are only the routes that you need to kind of plug. One is the sea route, which you can monitor. The other route is through through us as well. Through Tripura, Mizoram, a lot of nonsense was happening, and as a matter of fact, the chief minister of Mizoram accepted it this time recently. So those routes need to get blocked, and for that you need leverage inside Myanmar. So I think our policy has not been in Bangladesh. Our policy has been to contain Bangladesh, to ensure that the militarization, whatever is there, takes place. Back the army, because army can provide a certain amount of structure. Whatever said and done, these radical Islamic countries, army se phatti hai inki. So if army takes charge, they are all kind of yes sir, three bags full, sir. So I think that's one policy that I see. And Myanmar, sir, it's also a double game because China would want the Northeast to kind of rise up again. He's lost his leverage in Pakistan. He's in trouble in Pakistan. He can't do much. He can still do a little damage. So he wants to keep that pressure on you also. Myanmar is an ideal place. So the battleground, I think, in this geopolitical game is going to be there. Americans are there, sir. The Russians are there. We are there. The Chinese are there. There are two great games happening around India right now. One is in Afghanistan, where all the powers are inside, and the second is Myanmar. And both of them we need to resolve because the game is of this region otherwise will stay destabilized. And both of them you very well know is the golden triangle and the crescent. So I think the policy is going to be clean up inside, where we are seeing the anti-drug actions being taking place. Huge amount of stuff is happening. Recently, again, a bust of 2,500 kgs and this and that. A lot of networks being broken. Second aspect is cut the militarization, which is basically Afghanistan into Pakistan and Myanmar into Bangladesh. So this is what I see as a structure of the security that they're coming up with, because they know they can't do anything inside Pakistan or Bangladesh. It's not a society that will be responsive to you. So yeah, isolate it, and that's something I guess has worked quite decently well with Pakistan. That policy, I guess, it should work with Bangladesh as well, sir. What do you think? Okay, I think you. Yeah.
I think the real drama that is very, very critical for us, because even the Americans are, this whole business of this happening, the whole new world order, the whole thing is going to eventually, Burma is going to become a very critical,
Yes.
Myanmar is going to become a very critical point here. I think Prime Minister Modi's visit to Thailand and everything is finally not only the Northeast look not our Northeast policies, etc. There's a lot of change on the ground.
Yeah.
But there are a couple of things we have to also be very careful about. Like I've just come back from shooting in Arunachal. Now I shot there 14 years ago for the Northeast trilogy, and I had gone into all these. One of the things was that you know the indigenous faith, the Dawn of Apollo, was quite secure, and it had stood up to the missionaries. They had not been able to get into Arunachal, etc. But now that is also beginning to change. It's very, and since I'm taking photographs and I'm documenting it, I can see it. Uh, there is a there is all this is happening, and India as a country, Fortress India, we are a diverse lot of people, but वो Fortress India का जो concept है, we got to keep hammering away at that. And I feel right now, I don't know exactly what's going on, but I believe that there is we have finally started engaging Myanmar and engaging them at a time when they are in the most non-engageable manner actually, because they who's in control is also a bit of an issue there.
Yeah.
But China is, see, the Myanmaris have never really been very comfortable with dealing with China. I'll again give you another incident from General VK Singh's visit when he was the chief. The Myanmar chief broke protocol and said, "I'd like to drop it in the afternoon, have a cup of tea with you." So he came, and he had a captain with him who was a interpreter or whatever. And he came, and after some time, he tells General VK that, we are not very, we would much rather deal with India than China, but unfortunately, India is a NATO country. So General VK was a bit taken aback. He said, "What rubbish?" So he told him, "No, sir, this is not the case. This is the situation. This is what it is. Pakistan sent over to जो भी उन्होंने बोला, वो interpreter के through सुनता था, and again he would say, he doggedly said, "But you are a NATO country." And this went on for a while till they changed the subject. When he was leaving, he spoke in English, and he says, "General, I know, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, all that, but in Burma we refer to India as NATO because you are no action, talk only." And I think, hopefully now things are now beginning to change, because we've had some good people there, and for our own survival and for the survival of the Northeast to actually have things firmly in control, we have to engage at various levels there.
I agree, sir. No, Burma is, I mean, it was the geopolitical pivot in the Second World War, which basically reset the order of the so-called Indo-China region of that time. And I think it's going to be the pivot once again. Burma and Afghanistan, both these areas are going to be the pivot, especially for the Indian subcontinent. I absolutely agree. So, lastly, I want to ask you one thing. What is the solution of the mindset of Bangladesh? Or is there a solution? Because I don't feel so. I feel you isolate them, treat them the way
I
you're
don't think
treating Pakistan. That's it.
you have to live with it. You have to live with this. It's not going to change unless there's a personality who emerges from the grassroots,
Hmm.
who will tell the truth. But that is not going to happen, because if anybody comes and start talking about India's role, he's not going to survive. He'll meet the same fate as Mujib. Uh, उनके जो इंटेलेक्चुअल वगैरह हैं, सबके साथ जो हम लोग बात करते थे when we went to Bangladesh on these 3 trips, we were there for quite some time. Each trip was about 7-8 days, and they all, the educated class, obviously know what happened, and but they say it's impossible. It's impossible. It's too deep rooted. आपने वो टेक्स्ट बुक्स ही बदल दी हैं, तो आप अब क्या करोगे? हमने क्या किया था, क्या हुआ था, वो तो हमको जब आप पहचानने को नहीं तैयार, तो आप क्या करोगे? And we also should not be too hung up on what happened in 71. We did what we had to do. We liberated a country because they were being, they were being massacred. We went in as a good neighbor. We did what we had to do. What we All those things are water under the bridge. Ki we should have taken a route into the sea. ये वो settled this border, that क्या हुआ इधर उधर, वो हो गया. अब वो उसको उसमें हमारे को भी 71 पे हाफ करने से कुछ होगा नहीं. We have to deal with Bangladesh, which is a sovereign country. We have to respect them for whatever it is. And you can't suddenly become like Trump and say, "Ki, this is another state of India or something like that." No. But you've seen what's
Oh
happening
no,
in Canada and everywhere. But
I don't want that.
the things
I
are
don't
not.
want that.
I don't think. I don't think we are going to be any. We particularly want another state or
No.
more problems on that. They have to be dealt with, and I think they have to be dealt with a firm hand. And hopefully, I think this government has that gumption here. They have the ability to do that. But
Okay.
it's a very, very tricky and trying to.
I don't want that. So me and Colonel Raina, we talk about this pretty often. I'm mentioning Colonel Raina because it's a known this thing. But our narrative is, भाई POJ के नहीं चाहिए. Please रहने दो वहीं पर ही. हमको नहीं चाहिए. We don't want it. अगर गाजा से बंदे साफ कर सकते हो ना, तो हम लोग we will try and apply the same thing here. बंदे साफ करो, जगह ले लेते हैं. But we don't want it. Thank you very much, because who the hell is going to manage 20, 40, 50 lakh people more? And on top of it, you don't know their mentality, you don't know their mindset, you don't know nothing. I mean, nahi, you know,
For the sake of the people of Bangladesh, and I don't want to sound condescending or anything, but for the sake of the people of Bangladesh, I really hope they have a sensible leadership which emerges. China
yeah,
is not an answer for them. China will only nurture them further, and they've had it. It's a country which they are going to be in a little bit of a trouble with all this, new order, and a lot of their economy depends on their textile exports and
yeah,
stuff like that to the United States, etc. I
no,
wish them well, yeah, but they have to find their own solutions. If they think that they can play this bloody double game of sucking up to, becoming a Chinese this thing, well, they've got something else coming in that case.
apart from that, the Chinese are not interested. So he came back empty-handed from China, not one time. You know, the only thing he got was a duty-free agreement extension till 2028. That's it.
You couldn't
Not
get a
one yuan even came into Bangladesh.
you couldn't get a duty-free bottle of whiskey either. Religion doesn't allow that. So, anyway, I just hope Bangladesh somehow manages to you know pull itself together, because they've got major ecological issues. All of us do, the whole subcontinent do, coming their way. They have to. The only way they can fight it is with us. Whether because water is going to be a key. It is already becoming a very major issue. They have to cooperate with us. They have to, and they're downstream. Yeah, we are the guys on top. But the fact is that the case it's a humanitarian thing. We all sink or we drown together. It's as simple as that.
Most importantly, food, sir. They don't have any supplies of food. It's really bad. They don't have rice. They don't have anything. I mean, they're getting their rice from Myanmar. They picked up rice from Pakistan because we gave twice, and people in India said no rice to them. So government also said, okay, fair enough, no more rice. Then they went to Pakistan. They bloody bought it there, and they're crying. I believe yesterday when Modi साहब and Yunus met, वहाँ पर भी उसने Yunus ने बोला सर जी थोड़ा चावल दे दो. Uh, it's I mean it's pretty bad, and the worst part is their army, sir, where I see that their army is weak at best, divided at worst. Um, it's a bad scenario for a country, and I don't know whether this country and this structure will remain or it will just implode. Pakistan, I
Even if
know,
it
will not implode. It will kind of just disintegrate
See,
eventually.
Pakistan can disintegrate because it's got zones.
Yeah,
Bangladesh
this
will
thing will implode, sir.
disintegrate into what? Yeah, implode
It
into
won't.
what? It just goes, it's a black
Yeah,
hole which is there.
yeah,
And it's,
yeah.
I think, I just hope for their own sake, the leadership emerges, which is sensible. From
Yeah.
all the statements made by this gentleman of late, I think he's not really fit to lead.
No.
What are you provoking us for? What are you
I
What are
know.
you getting at? तुमको क्या मिलने वाला है कि ये कि you know
So he faced some backlash right now recently, and I've noticed this every time he does this, he gets a certain amount of benefit from the street. Oh, he hit India, he hit India. Nothing else. There is nothing else. He recently said in a BBC interview, I'm not stopping Awami League from fighting elections. His own so-called student advisor started speaking against him. They had a huge protest in front of his house. The army had to come and rescue him out from there. So this thing kind of sells on the ground, sir, because the connection is, oh, Sheikh Hasina is evil. Sheikh Hasina is in India, so India is evil. Fair enough. I
So,
mean,
whatever it is, good luck to
thanks,
them.
sir. Thank you so much for the historical tour. And I think this was a very interesting and very important conversation to have. I think we need to understand the mindset, because we need to also, as public, if we keep saying कि ये कर दो वो कर दो, हमको थोड़ा mindset and the ground reality पता होनी चाहिए. Thank you so much for the time, sir. To the audience, please like, subscribe, and share this to people that you feel are interested in the subject. Namaskar. Jai Hind. Jai Bharat.
Thank you, Adi. Thank you for having me. Have a good day.